Hello and welcome to Sunday Brunch, everybody. It's RM here live for Sunday Brunch. And of course, we are here with Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you today?
Top of the world today. This morning, UK time, England just won the ICC 2020 World Cup. So England are world champions in both 50 and 20 over cricket. I couldn't be happier. It's a big deal for me anyway. Yeah, so I'm thrilled. Come on, England. Absolutely made up.
All right, that's fantastic. I love to hear sports news that is encouraging, is inspiring. I bet some of you in the chat probably watched this a particular tournament. Congratulations to England for being number one. And
Absolutely.
it is so exciting. I love that, guys. Certainly something to celebrate there. And I did want to say hello to the folks in the chat. Of course,
Mm,
good morning to Tom Jr. Jackson.
the man, the legend.
How are you, Tom? We are all goof people. It is a wonderful Sunday in November. Can you believe it, Russ? It's November.
I know. And do you know what? It's like a May Day here today. It's like the end of springtime going into summer. It's so warm. I had to take my daughter to somewhere in Surrey today, and I had the top down on the car. Like it's that warm. It's crazy.
That is great. It's not that warm here in New York, in the tri-state area. It's in the 50s, and last night was in the 40s.
Mm.
However, it still doesn't quite feel like winter. It definitely feels like a very crisp fall time for those of you who do live in this area in the Northeast. I'm sure Tom can attest to that as well. But I'm
Yeah,
glad you're having those nice
not as
warm.
bad as Maine though.
No, not
I
even.
bet it's colder in Maine, right?
Yeah, it's not even close to Maine. It's actually, to be honest with you, the New York weather is actually pretty darn good when you think about where we are located.
Mm.
So, we don't get pounded with as much snow. If you were just a few miles north, you get all that snow, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Russ.
I,
Um,
yes, I do from bitter self experience of that. Yeah.
So for a northeast place, we just don't get that intense weather. We get cold, but we're not known for, snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. If you just go to Westchester County, a little bit higher, they get that snow.
Mm.
We have been spared that. And good morning to you, Joe Tyson.
Hey,
Joe, how
Joe.
are you? God, it's good to see you this morning. Welcome to Sunday Brunch. Retro Nerd Girl is with us
It,
today.
the circle is now complete. Hello, Retro Nerd Girl.
I hope you are well, Retro Nerd Girl. I did see you on Facebook. I've got some things to discuss with you, Retro Nerd Girl. Certainly glad to see you here, guys. Check out Retro Nerd Girl's channel where she does movie reviews of retro movies, the stuff we all love. Guys, do check out. So like and subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. Oops.
I don't know if Rita's frozen for everyone or if I've frozen.
It's me.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. This is gonna.
Right, so I think we might have lost our room for a couple of minutes. I don't know if the chat's still going, but I'll try and go through here and see who else turned up this morning. So we had Retro Nerd Girl, Keely Chow's here, Roll Tide, Keely Chow,
Or
Darth Plato. Hello, Darth Plato. Yeah, Darth Plato chat sent me an email the other day regarding All Quiet on the Western Front, which I'm sort of midway through watching at the moment. So we'll get back to you on that, mate. But I'm sort of sharing your analysis. Darth Plato sent me a fairly lengthy email on his thoughts on the film as compared to the book. So I will get back to you on that. And RM is back.
thank you so much, Russie. If you're not here, what would happen? It would just be radio silence, and we don't want that. Certainly, everybody. Thank you so much. Darth Vader says, "Rule Britannia." Yes, and of course, hello to Mario Lopez this
Hey,
morning.
Mario.
Hope you are well. Luminara 843 is with us this morning. How are you? I hope you are well, Luminara. It is
Yes,
such
she
a
is.
pleasure to see you this morning. Yes, she says we are here. I'm sorry, my system is not, it's not being nice. and Dr. Dragon. Dr. Dragon, good morning to you.
Hello. I don't think I've seen Dr. Dragon before, so if you're new to here, welcome. Welcome to Sunday Brunch.
Absolutely welcome, Dr. Dragon, and welcome everybody. Do please, Keely Chow. Keely
Yeah,
Chow is here.
I said hello to Keely when you were offline. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Keely. Sorry about the offline thing, guys. It's so great to see all of you here today on Sunday Brunch. Well, Russ, there's a lot of news, a lot of things going on in the entertainment world, certainly more than what had been going on even a few weeks ago. And
Mm.
although I know that you have not seen this film, I know you haven't seen the film yet. I know that there are certain things that uh, there's been some controversy around this film. There's no other way to put it. Let me see if I can share it here. And it has to do with Black Panther Wakanda. I have of course shared my opinion about the film. Um, and Russ, you have mentioned that you did not get a chance to see the film, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think I am going to see this film. I'm pretty sort of disengaged with Marvel Phase 4. It's just not it's not interesting to me. I'll kind of wait for the next phase. Hopefully they can write their particular ship. The sort of editorials and I mean, do you want to talk about the box office first, and then I'll share my thoughts on it?
Well, I don't have much to say. I mean, I have to say that I've said a lot about the film and how I felt about it. And I did spend money. I went and got a ticket to the film because I support, the entire franchise. So
Hmm.
there wasn't going to be a situation where I wasn't going to see it. I have to see it. So I saw it, and they're saying that it's heading to 300 million, which means I don't think it's actually made that amount. And this was yesterday morning. Maybe it has tipped the scale to that, but
Is that good? I mean, that seems to be fairly okay to me.
seems fine to me. I have a feeling that this particular movie is hopefully will make back what they put into it. I think that the word is out about the film. A lot of people are talking about the film, and I think people are showing up to go to the movies to see the film. Obviously, if no one was showing up, we wouldn't have a box office result of that amount. So at least that's my theory. I'm not going to go ahead and say that they are making as much as they wanted to at this point. I have no idea what the target amount was for Black Panther. I don't know, but what I do know is that to be honest with you, I think it's gotten more press over the last week than it has in the entire time that it was supposed to be coming out. I don't think they marketed the film. And I think they were afraid maybe to really market this film because it's so different from what the first film was like. So, Russ, what have you heard about the film in regards to what it's making, how people are responding to it?
Well, before I do that, we have Murray Lockery here. He says hello. Hope everyone's having a great Sunday. Yeah, hello. I don't think I've seen you before either, Murray. So welcome if I haven't, and if you have been here before, I've been remiss. Um, what have I heard about this film? I
And
look.
sorry, and hi, bye for the Hobbit. How are
Oh, hi,
you?
bye.
Go ahead.
Um, yeah, as you know, I follow all the same channels as everybody else here. So I've heard Mr. H's verdict on it. I've heard the Critical Drinkers version of it, and I've caught Midnight Ed's reaction to it. Um, it. I'm not interested in this movie at all. And judging by what these people have said, I think there's a little bit too much. There's a little bit of glee going on certain channels that this film isn't great. Um, and that that's fine. It seems to be taking a bit of a. It's almost like it's taking a bit of a revenge kicking from certain outlets. I'll say that, but it's not really on my radar. It's not really something I can discuss. Like in terms of the film, all I can say is. Well, I can just report on what other people said, and I tend to, I don't always agree with the critical drinker, but I think he always has. Hey, Mikey, um,
Hi, Mikey Lito.
I
He
always
said,
think he has a legit take. And
"Oh
sorry,
no, no,
what
I'm
we
sorry. Go ahead, go ahead."
yeah, I think his takes are legit. Whether I agree with them or not is irrelevant. And one of the things that he says about this film, and I imagine that he's correct in this, from basically piecing together what other people have said. Hey, Jerry,
Hi,
sorry.
Gary
Uh,
Mendoza. Happy holidays to you, everybody, as well as RM Russ and Retro Nerd Girl. Thanks so much, Jerry.
I think the feeling of it is, as the drinker put it, it's kind of peak Marvel. It's peak Marvel messaging at this point, where there's hardly any men in it, and it's all very rah 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 and girl power and all that kind of stuff. The CGI apparently isn't very good. Uh, the plot points don't seem to make a lot of sense in certain places. But you know what? It's a Marvel film, and if you like it, go enjoy it, go love it. I'm sure you'll have a fun time. And yeah, it is what it is. And if it doesn't do as well as it's projected to do, I wonder. It seems like, as we've been saying for a few months now, that this sort of like messaging tide seems to be turning, and this might be, if it was peak Marvel messaging, perhaps now this is the point where if it won't stop, at least it will course correct itself, because I think this is the last movie of Phase 4. Although I did hear some horror stories about Blade, the Blade reboot. So who knows? But yeah, not gonna see it. Wish it all the best, but not really for me. And I I I just, yeah, I've heard enough people slagging it off, to be honest with you. And this is positive fandom, and I haven't seen it, and yeah, that's my thoughts on it really.
Well, this is positive fandom, and I'm not really, and I'm assuming Mike Alito, are you talking about Wakanda? Because you didn't say, but I'm assuming it is, since you have 10 out of 10 and highly recommend. So that is great. And like I said, we want this film, and I want every film to do well. So
Mm.
this really isn't anything that is a reflection. It's just my personal preferences that I've been talking about. And I'm not necessarily going to talk about them at length here, because I am definitely looking for different things. And I'm going to be talking more about some of the things that I notice about the film tomorrow
Mm.
on Ladies of the PGS, meaning that there are certain things that I think, I'm not going to say people are overlooking, but I believe people may be overlooking from the film. Now, what I was going to say is that it depends on what you're looking for. For example, if you want to see a film where there are mainly women in the role, hot Black women, if you want to see hot Black women who are the main characters in a movie, this is the film.
Why do you think Mikey Leto gave it 10 out of 10?
Well, I well, first of all, you can find out on Mike Alito's channel what he thought of the film on his, because he gave his own review. So Mikey Alito did see the film. He gave a review of the film, and I think that it keeps, it's worth checking out his review, because, as I say, you want to check out reviews that have different opinions. So this is something to think about, and certainly something that I can do here on on positive fandom and nowhere else, because it's not a popular opinion to say, well, someone else liked it and someone else didn't like it, watch both. I don't think that flies in the real world. I think most people just are disgusted with that notion. But I'm here on positive fandom because we like opposing views. Like, this
Mm.
is, this is how we are, and we enjoy it. And I want someone to enjoy the film. It's just not my preference to enjoy it, and that's fine. So there's going to be someone out there that's going to love it, because we have how many billions of people on this planet? There's going to be someone, Russ, who when they see this film is going to say this is, an incredible film, and that's completely fine. And I wanted to, at least if anything, to make excuse me, enough money to cover how much it costs to make, because I hope one day they'll make a Black Panther 3. So even if the second film is not what I wanted, I certainly want Black Panther to continue. This is something really important, for as far as I'm concerned. I want to see the characters, especially the female characters, again. I don't want this to be a movie where they're like, well, we featured all the female characters, now we have to make sure we have no female characters in the next film, because you know what I'm talking
You don't want to jump from one extreme to the other. I do have to just address a point here in the chat, though,
about.
on
Is it Sherry? Oh, Mike.
Mikey's normal, watch content, form opinion, see it for yourself. I'm not gonna in this case. I don't fancy it. I was saying just before you joined, Mikey, this sort of phase of Marvel, this fourth phase, it hasn't grabbed me. And this film, I'm just not interested. I'm not caught up with it. So I was just saying to our own before you joined, um, I've heard a lot of people hating on it, for whatever reasons, and I'm more like, no, don't see it. And if you enjoy it, brilliant. But I don't fancy it, so I'm not going to go and sit down and watch a film uh, that I don't particularly want to see. And Aram and I were discussing this before the stream. I think it was yesterday, or might have been this morning. We're talking about it, but this is positive fandom, and I don't think we should be jumping on the giving it a kicking bandwagon. Apparently, from what has been said by reviewers that I trust, it's not great, but there seems to be, as I said at the beginning, there's a little bit too much glee in it not being great going on, and I'm not interested in being a part of that, really.
Yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind. Darth Plato says MCU seems like the post office for activist public relations. There
To
may
say,
be some truth to that. Jerry Menoza says, I believe that Ryan Coogler didn't have a choice about what the writers are writing. Thank
do you
you,
know,
Jerry.
this is interesting. I've heard this. I don't know if I said this on here before. This is interesting. Writers come in for a lot of bad rap when it comes to messaging and all that sort of thing. But more often than not, in my experience, and it's just my limited experience, so I could be completely wrong, but the writers, especially in franchises, are not really coming up with spec scripts and pitching it to the head of studios. I've got this great idea for a Superman story. We're going to do this. Those sorts of decisions are made by producers and heads of department and all that sort of thing, and directors. So I don't know. We'll take Batwoman. Here's a good one, Batwoman. Okay, so Ruby Rose hurts herself. She's not. Um, she's no longer Batwoman, right? We need a new Batwoman. What are we going to do? I don't think the writers all sat there and go, okay, well, we need a black Batwoman now. That's what we're going to do. No, that decision would have been made by the heads of the studio, the bosses, and the producers, and then the writers have to go, okay, right, we're going to have to come up with an idea to replace this character with a person of color. So it's not really so much the writers, I don't think, and that's not me being part of the writers' union. I just think that these decisions are made at much higher level, and it sort of filters down. And writers have to do their job, otherwise they'll find another writer who will.
Well, it's something to think about. Luminara 843 says they should have made up a bunch of male characters just for the heck of it, even though the first film was praised for being female heavy. And I think, Luminara, you make a good point, because what a lot of reviewers are saying is that because there are no male characters, and since, let's say, 99.9% of the viewership are male, and they want to actually purchase things, and boys, especially boys who enjoy these characters and want to wear the suit or buy the toys, that there aren't any toys for them to buy that are male. And there should be a variety of choices for everybody who's interested in it. And I think I'm glad you mentioned that, Luminara, that initially the film was praised for being female heavy. Certainly something to think about going forward. And it couldn't have hurt, even if they did have some male characters dealing with something else, and perhaps not even the main focus that they wanted in the film. It could have been a very different style of film, maybe Sherry dealing with one thing and the men dealing with something else. But it's something to think about. Mikey Little says that he is going to write his stream tonight and do a review now that he has his power back on. I didn't know you didn't have power, Mikey Lito. I'm so sorry. But Tom Jr. Jackson says that he did a 45-minute review of the movie on his channel and did it without notes. Well, okay, Tom Jr. Jackson. You rock, Tom Jr. Jackson. Hello to that girl. Good day, everyone. Hello, that girl.
I don't think we've seen that girl before, and if we have, I apologize if we haven't. Welcome to Positive Fandom. It's so lovely to see you on Sunday morning for you, I imagine, or Sunday afternoon if you're in Europe. So hello.
Absolutely. And so we have that there. Certainly nice to have you here. But it is something to think about when we're looking at these particular types of films. Also, the other thing I was going to say is, supposedly, Russ, there is this, I guess, sentiment or feeling that things are kind of moving in a different direction. Now, this film was made ages ago. And if I remember correctly, there was this whole problem with COVID, and this film had to deal with all of that nonsense, so to speak. I shouldn't have said the C word, but I said it. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because it had some unique situations that it has to deal with. And when you do have those unique situations, you definitely end up with a film that could go either way. Now that there's supposedly this change of guard, there's going to be this, people are saying, oh, supposedly there is this, things aren't heading in that direction anymore. I have to wonder to myself, um, is this going to be the last one? You said that the drinker said this was peak Marvel. Is this going to be the very last one that we're going to see like this? Or are we going to still continue in this direction with this theme?
I I don't know. So what I was talking about earlier on was I'd seen some reports, um, but via a YouTuber who's sort of like not very reliable. But then other channels started to pick up on this, to say that if that also the Blade reboot was so, oh god, I hate using the word now, was so woke that people have started sort of leaving the project. So that the story behind that was that essentially, and I imagine they're going to change this, so no spoilers because the film isn't even out. But um, Blade has a daughter in this film who somehow isn't a vampire, but then sort of becomes a vampire, and in the end, sort of ends up taking over the Blade mantle. But the sources that were reporting on this said that so many people have walked away from the project, and they've cited the script as terrible. And one source said it was woke nonsense, and it was just trying way too hard. So if that's the case, and they've looked at this project and now the Blade project, and realizing that this, well, if they do realize, so I don't know. I would hope so. um but that's just my opinion, and that might just be an opinion of certain people in certain corners of YouTube. The fact of the matter is, the looking at the figures of Wakanda Forever, that they don't look bad. I mean, they don't look like this film is going to be a flop or anything like that. So I guess the messaging from the general audience is, no, keep it coming. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think people will find different things in it. And the final thing that I am going to say to people, and we're going to kind of end the Wakanda discussion, because I'm not going to bore you with how hot I think Namor is, because that man is smoking hot. Okay, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I could watch Namor on the screen all day. That actor is amazing. He's beautiful. And I had almost made a joke about it. He's supposed to be sort of like a bad guy, or I guess he was. Maybe he wasn't, but he sure was attractive. And I really enjoyed seeing him as that character. For a good portion of the show, I think that he really made me pay a little bit more attention. So while there weren't a lot of black men in the film, there certainly was Namor, and he got a decent amount of screen time. So I can say that about it. And I did enjoy seeing him there. Also, X Delta 81, hi, X Delta 81 has a question about, or at least a comment. I don't think Phase 4 had to have an overarching arc like 1 through 3, but Phase 4 is completely pointless, and they're more focused on preaching than entertaining. And I have to agree with you. There's definitely some kind of message that they're sending with a lot of the films.
I mean, it's great with the benefit of hindsight, and then you can talk about the box office and all that sort of thing. But I've always thought this, and I don't know why they didn't do this, was when they had Endgame, take 2 years off, just 2 years, just to sort of, okay, now what do we do? As opposed to just keeping the production line rolling for now through a period of however many years it's been since the end of Endgame, that we've kept this train going, but it seems to be profitable now only by its own momentum, in that Marvel is such a juggernaut, people will just turn out and watch these films. But even the most ardent activist and or slash Marvel fan would have to admit that the quality of Phase 4 has not been up to the standard of the other phases. Now, sure, there were average movies, and perhaps even shit movies in phases 1 through 3, but by and large, it was a solid 4-star all the way through. With some 5 stars and 6 stars, and however many stars you want to throw at some of these awesome movies that they made. But Phase 4 has been a bit shit.
Well, hello to you, Stubble. He says, "Hi, gang. Hi,
Hey,
Stubble.
Stubble.
You. It's so good to see you. I think Stubble was on the PGS last night. Stubble, it's so good to see you. And Mario says, I will not spend my money on films that people I trust say isn't good. I will see it later on Disney or whatever. It's not for free or whatever. You know something, Mario, and that's fine. I think a lot of people do feel that way.
You know what? This is again, like my friend Mikey's absolutely right when he says, watch content for form opinion. I wholeheartedly support that, but I also wholeheartedly support what Mario's saying. Like, oh, dude, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not. I've seen the trailers, I've read the reviews. It sounds crap. I don't want to see it, and that's a legitimate standpoint to take. Why do you have to spend 3 hours of your time watching a film that you don't really fancy? I mean,
Exactly. And
you're not wrong for that.
it's true. And, I think that, as I said before, the way that it was marketed and advertised is exactly what you got. You didn't see any men, and therefore there were hardly any in it, and that's fine. So they didn't, there wasn't the promise of, you'll see all the warrior men from Wakanda in this. No, they didn't promise that. So, there is that. And I have to say that's very fair. Tom Jr. Jackson says, I enjoyed it and I actually formed part of my review while watching the film. Well, that's good. Thank you so much, Tom. And Tom, thank you for everything you do. You know what I'm talking about. Thank you, Tom. Um, and we have the hidden. The hidden is here. Hi, the hidden.
Hidden is revealed once again.
Yes, we also have Benny Gregerson. Hi, Benny. And he says, oh, and of course, this is in a foreign language, but hello to you, Benny. You are certainly welcome here. We are so
I
glad.
think he's saying, "How's it going from Sweden?" That's
Yes.
gonna
And
that's gonna be my guess there.
it says something like Hitch, Stubble, McShave, Jag, something going. And you're right. You're right. That's what it says. Benny, so good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. That's great of you. Darth Plato says that the Dora Milaje as a special forces group doesn't make any sense. A glorified bodyguard, okay, sure. Gaddafi had all female bodyguards with guns, and if I remember correctly, the Dora Milaje were inspired by the group of the I can't remember the name of the women, but they were part of the it was part of the women who were in the Woman King who were the inspiration for the Dora Milaje. However, um, one thing I can say is that Ruth Carter, who's the costume designer, I wouldn't be surprised if she won for best costume design again for this film. The costumes were extraordinary. I don't know where Ruth Carter gets her abilities. This woman is talented. She has a certain flair for design. And Robert interviewed her. Robert interviewed Ruth Carter, Robert Meyer Burnett on his channel. So you can see that interview. It actually might be on John Campia's link, but check out if you want to find out about the costumes, which are extraordinary. I still have never seen amazing costumes like this. It's very different from what we've seen in a lot of the other shows like House of the Dragon, which is also extraordinary in their costume design. So we had two productions, excuse me, this year that I think are contenders for costume design.
I
Even
think
though House of the Dragon is a TV show, excuse me.
sure. I think Darth Plato. I think it's the one place where it does kind of make sense. It's a superhero film, so we can kind of get away with it. I think if we're trying to ground it in reality, yeah, sure, it doesn't make any sense. But this is a dumb comic book movie, right? It's well, I don't know if it's particularly dumb because I haven't seen it, but it's a comic book film. And I think we can give them a little bit of latitude.
Yeah, and the hidden has a very interesting question. Wants to know, do I think both DCU's Aquaman and MCU's Wakanda Forever fail to address rising oceans, climate change, or is climate change not important to Namor and Aquaman series? I don't think it's important to them. I think that it's just something that they, because of the environment that they're in, they could throw it in there, but then that would be sending a message which many people don't like, as they have made apparently clear in these Marvel films. They don't like these messages. However, inherently the characters, and because I don't read the comics, at least not superhero comics, I read indie comics, so I don't know. Aquaman might be someone who's concerned about it, and uh, the Wakandians might be concerned about it, but it's not a question that I can answer if those characters are inherently concerned about it. Russ, do you know anything about it?
I think with situations like global warming or anything like that, as much as we love superheroes and as much as we want superheroes to be grounded in reality, like, I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. I love the way that he tried to ground Superman, like what would really happen if. But essentially, those are things that you can deal with. But when it comes to real world issues, I always think that, especially, well, certainly superhero movies probably want to steer clear of things like that, because that's not, for me, really what they're about. Because then you get into the whole issue of, well, if you're going to tackle that, then why don't you tackle this? So why hasn't Superman fixed global warming? He could
Yeah,
certainly do that. He can do that, right? Why hasn't Superman do that? Why? And they tried to do this in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which I know is a really bad film. It had all sorts of good intentions, but you know, Superman shouldn't be tackling nuclear disarmament. I
yeah.
just, not for me. These are huge problems, and once you start asking those questions, then yeah, of course, superheroes could fix absolutely everything if we wanted to. So I hope they don't. It would be my response to that.
Yeah, and as I said, I don't really know. So I don't know if they addressed it or not. I guess they could if they want to. And I wouldn't be surprised if a superhero was like that, or they got their powers because whatever happened. Who knows? But as I said, I have no idea if they did address it or not. I don't know. So maybe
Well, they
someone knows
they,
in the
they
chat.
don't. They don't is the point. And I'm sure that there are comics and one shots, and mini series where they do look at stuff like this,
Yeah.
and that's fine in the comics. But I think, as far as general entertainment goes, I think it raises more questions than answers.
Yeah, I agree. But thank you for asking the cool question, the hidden. Thank you for bringing that up. Tom Jr. Jackson says, check out Mikey Lito's channel. Everybody, definitely check out Mikey Lito's channel. Now, Luminara 843 has a very good point, and I have to agree with Luminara on this. The acting in this film was superb. Absolutely, Luminara. We saw so many great performances in this film. Certainly some better than others. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the acting. So certainly that is something that you can't ignore. The performances were great. I think everybody is talking about Angela Bassett's speech, and I think that the speech was a little displaced in the context it was, but anything Angela Bassett seems to
Mm.
do is extraordinary. Can
She
we
could be
just
reading that. She could be reading the phone book and make it sound impressive, right?
talk about Angela Bassett and, if anything, this film, the idea that some women can at any age be extraordinary, and Angela Bassett is one of those women. She looks so good. She just is amazing. I think she's an incredible actress, incredibly powerful in this film. So even despite how I feel about the film, there were certain things in it that I liked. And Mikey Lito says Tena Huerta Mehat, and that's the actor who plays
No,
Namor,
no
right?
more.
Yes, he is beautiful. He's one of the best looking actors, I think, out there right now. And someone had made a comment about me, thinking about him, or, I guess they didn't think that he was hot enough or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, I thought that this actor was stunning. I think he's stunning. I think he really is a good looking man. I think that I have no idea about his ancestry, or, like whether he is actually portraying has the same ancestry as the character that he's supposed to be portraying, but it doesn't matter. I found that he, as an actor, was incredibly charismatic. He looks good on the camera, um, and I almost like had to wonder to myself, and I know that there are villains in movies, and people are like, "Oh, he's the villain," or whatever, or maybe he is the villain. It almost didn't matter because he was so good looking that I completely forgot that he was a bad guy. And I think that that says something in regards to casting. I'm not saying he was the wrong person for the role, but the tone of him was that I'm like, maybe he's not the bad guy. Maybe this guy isn't bad at all. And I don't even know if I got the what the intention was of what he was trying to represent. I knew he had a beef, but what I'm saying is, I couldn't see any of that. This man was so gorgeous. So I don't know how anybody else feels about it. He was just great to watch, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of him, but I couldn't see him when he was in the underwater world because you couldn't see it, and that was another thing that was unfortunate. You know, you're waiting for this entire beautiful world. You want to see this new world. We've never seen this world before. It's under the water, and they get their power from what's that stuff? Vibranium. But you couldn't see it in the movie, Russ. So I said, "Oh, it must be my theater. It must be, the theater near me here in Long Beach. I'm not going to say which theater, but it must be the Regal Theater near here. There must have been some problem with this one." So then I speak to another person about it, and another person about it, and people in California, people here. Oh, you all felt that it was very dark, and I couldn't support the film because I can't see what I'm watching. It makes you feel, at first I felt very old because I'm thinking to myself, it must be that my eyes are bad.
Mm.
And everybody else can see this amazing thing, and then I realized there was something wrong with that. So I feel like I missed out on seeing him in the underwater world, but that's okay because I'm sure they will correct it at some point. Jerry Mendoza says, I'm hoping to not see him in the next Fantastic Four movie, and I'm assuming you mean Namor, I guess. Okay, gotcha. It is something to think about. And let's see.
We got loads to catch up on. I think the chat's on fire today, man.
Absolutely. Let's see. Oh, G Dog. Who's this? G Dog. I've never seen G Dog before. Hello. He has the picture of the most interesting
Man in the world. I know. We didn't have those adverts in the UK, but as it turned out, when those adverts were on, I was actually in the States, and I just thought they were hilarious. They just cracked me up. I can still remember it to this day. The one line where they said, "Sharks have a day dedicated to him."
Yes.
So funny.
Yes, they do. And of course, I'm assuming that Hollywood, it's about Lorenzo Lamas, who was, I guess, considered maybe the most interesting man in the world. And you see him in these old films, and he looks incredible. Benny Gregerson says, yes, I am from Sweden. We are so happy to have you here this morning, certainly. Lord Toth is here. Hello, Lord Toth. How are you? Lord Toth says hi to everyone. And let's see who else is here. Just want to make sure. Oh, Luminara says, people don't really want reality in their movies. They want fantasy with a bit of logic. Yeah, I agree, Luminara. It is a fantasy, essentially. I'm not going to give too much away, but it is a fantasy meeting a powerful underwater god and getting to meet this man and talking to an incredibly attractive underwater god. It's total fantasy, Luminara. And he gives you a piece of jewelry. It's total fantasy, Luminara, and I like it. I like that type of fantasy. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that tomorrow, and I certainly don't want you guys to be have it on your shoulders, my desires of what I want to see in a film like this. But Darth Plato says environmentalism, it's a legit concern. I think he does make a point, because you're talking about characters, especially what the Hidden said, that deal with the environment and live in an environment in a different way. And it's, but not the scare tactics. And he talks about activism. And of course, Darth Plato, we were talking about the soup can girls, Russ, the oil activists, and, them throwing, a soup can onto a painting. Although I don't know what the painting.
Yeah, we've had enough of them here. I'm afraid they've caused us a lot of problems. Whether their cause is legitimate or not is not for me to say, but they've been very, 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 very disruptive. And I don't necessarily think that their protests are going to achieve anything at this point. So, yeah.
And we have Infinite Retro says, first graphic novel I ever saw was J.M.O. Barr's The Crow. Now, The Crow. Oh my gosh. Isn't there some news about that, Russ? I didn't capture everything, but honestly, The Crow is one of the most haunting stories out there. And the movies that they made, at least the first one, definitely captured that haunting feeling.
It's a fucking masterpiece. The first one is a masterpiece and remains a masterpiece to this day. I think it was 1996 or 1997. I'm sure someone in the chat will correct me. I think it was mid to late 90s. It holds up. the comic is brutal, the film is brutal. One of the great tragedies about The Crow, the franchise, obviously the tragedy of Brandon Lee is a real life thing, but I'm talking about the franchise in and of itself. The Crow 2 City of Angels was actually an entirely different movie to the one that came out. Um, the guy who was making it knew that he couldn't do um, what had been done before, and he had a completely different take on it, and it was very. It's almost like if The Crow was Blade Runner, City of Angels was 2049. It's like a completely different color palette, completely different vibe, and all that stuff. But of course, at the time, Weinstein was head of studio, and the director came out with this beautiful, like 2.5 hour art house, but actiony meditation on life and death and all the rest of it. And Weinstein ordered it to be cut to shreds. And again, and like Event Horizon, the footage from City of Angels is lost. So we will never see the director's cut of that film, and it's a tragedy because the film itself is garbage when you watch it now. But even though it's garbage, you can see what it may have been, and that's a real shame.
It is, and everybody is still talking. Angela Bassett, God, she's so lovely.
Mm.
Was fantastic and hot. And Mario says he remembers her in Strange Days. I remember that film. I loved her in that, and she's also on 911. She seems to do no wrong, guys. Also, Mikey Lito says Malik and the Woman King was hotter. All right, I have to say there are a lot of hot women in this film, and for those of you who love hot Black women, this is the film for you.
No,
Snortopopalis.
nobody checked my internet search. My God, I could be in trouble.
Snortopopalis, Q Burr. Hello, humans and other critters. How are you? So good to see you here. I hope you are well today.
Hello.
So nice that you're stopping by. And Gary Bando Sandwich is here. Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington, and hello from UK. Did you watch the cricket, Gary? I wonder. Hope you were well. Also gonna say, now, Retro Nerd Girl, were you reading my mind? Are we on the same page, my dear? Retro Nerd Girl says, I was hoping that there would be an offer of marriage to unite the two nations, a little romance. And of course, we are talking about Namor and Shuri. Guys, I thought there was going to be like a brown chicken, brown cow situation where she falls in love with this guy because it seemed to go in that direction. It's not a spoiler. But I was going to say that I was kind of hoping for something incredible or unusual, because I felt like Shuri kind of needed this to get over this loss. She was in pain. She needed the comfort of Namor. See, I knew I was going to go there.
I'm not surprised they didn't go there with that, simply because of all the real world connotations of the terrible tragedy that surrounded the character, the actor that played the character, Chadwick Boseman. But having said that, I think Retro Nerd Girl and you are hit on a really good point. Marvel are in this phase where they're trying to make films that feature powerful women, and how Marvel tends to go about it is at the denigration of men and all of that, and that's been done to death. I don't want to talk about that, but I think what they are missing is, women and girls do like to see strong female characters portrayed as warriors and as fighters and all the rest of it, but they kind of are missing a trick when it comes to the romance, because I don't know a woman that doesn't like a rom-com, right? Guys don't watch rom-coms. We only watch them by and large if we're made to, and we enjoy them, sure, but it's not like, if my mates are coming around, for beer and pizza, I'm not going to put on it. What about Notting Hill? For when it's that we're not going to have that conversation. It's going to be Predator or Rocky or whatever it's going to be. And I think Marvel might want to lean into that. That dance with Steve Rogers and Petty Carter. All that stuff. I mean, how romantic was that? And the guys are going, yeah, yeah, romantic. But I bet you loved it. They were looking into each other's eyes and turning around, and they finally cross the barriers of time, and they finally get to live out their lives together. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? And there's not enough of that. So we can have some arse kickery for sure, but let's have a little bit of romance too.
And Jerry Minoza talks about how there was romance between Namor and Susan Storm, and there are romances in
Excuse
these
me for
comics.
1 minute.
Sure. there are romances in these comics. I'm just going to take you out of there for a second. There are romances in these comics for certain, but we're not seeing them on the screen. And that's something else that I'm going to be talking a little bit more. G-Dog, perhaps it's what men want is taboo now. To be honest with you, if women like the rom-coms, I think put some nudity in there. I am I wrong? Do men like nudity? I think that if we saw a little bit of that, and I don't necessarily mean male nudity, it's up to what you like, male or female nudity, it's your choice, but something to think about. uh, in that regard. And guys, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, okay, you are back. At 6 p.m. Eastern, I will be on the Post Geek Singularity with my ladies of the PGS, where we are going to be talking a lot more about this idea, Retro Nerd Girl, about joining two nations and what that could mean, and clearly what they were saying on screen and what all of us were thinking, but they failed to deliver on in that film. It certainly is something that I was thinking, and I think it's funny that you were thinking it. And from people who have seen the film, they were all thinking it. Why didn't we see that? We want to see it. It's natural to have these feelings, to have these desires. Desires are a good thing, guys. So there is that. Now, we're at the 46-minute. Russ, are you still with us, or do you have?
No. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. That was just my daughter, and I said, "Must I come and get you?" And she's like, "No. I'm going to get the train, so we're safe."
Okay, great. We are always glad that you are still here with us. Of course, there's a lot to talk about. And one thing I did want to say has to do with the fact that there is, I just want to briefly mention, somebody did mention Disney Plus. They were talking about the idea of layoffs happening at Disney. And we saw stuff like that at Meta, which is formerly Facebook. We saw stuff like that at Twitter after it was acquired by Elon. And I'm not blaming you, Elon. It's your company. You do what you must do. Certainly not forcing blame. And now we're seeing or hearing that Disney is also on that route, which we saw pretty much 2 years ago, I guess, something like that happening. And clearly, as far as I'm concerned, the reason why this is happening is because of the lack of success in something like this, in a movie that I think we all agree could have easily made $1 billion, like Spider-Man: No Way Home did. So there is that. And the other thing that I was going to say is the person who did the music for Black Panther, let me see if I can just share this screen really quickly, is ironically a very, very talented composer. Where is it? It just disappears on me. Yes, here it is. It's a guy by the name, it's a guy by the name of, did I share it? Okay. It's the thing to share is right near another thing that you press on, but composer Ludwig Göransson, who also did the music for The Mandalorian, which we all are aware of, at least for those of us who are fans of The Mandalorian, talks about this labor of love. It's a labor of love, cementing Chadwick Boseman's legacy with Black Panther, Wakanda Forever sound and screen. And this was actually a still from the movie that everybody has already seen before. But, I think it's very interesting when you talk about these composers, and Göransson said it was a very difficult project because of what happened. Obviously in the first movie, so many themes and so many sounds are tied to him and T'Challa. So how do we go back into doing a sequel? Can I use the themes? Can I use the sounds? Everything has so much meaning to it. So it was important heading into the sequel, whenever we use any of the sounds from the theme from the first movie, they are really thought out, and we put attention into detail because of all the emotions it will bring. It had to really feel right. Now, that is something else that I wanted to mention was a victory for the film. As far as I'm concerned, the soundtrack was beautiful. Göransson did another fantastic job. I think he's a rising star when it comes to film composition. And of course, I don't know how many films he's done. We know he's done The Mandalorian. That is one of those incredible soundtracks. Russ, have you watched The Mandalorian?
Fuck yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that with you, because recently there was also another development in regards to, yeah, you're going to hate me for this, in regards to Grogu, aka Baby Yoda, aka my absolute favorite character in the entire world, as you all know. And why am I even talking about this? The reason why has to do with the fact that they did a project with the character, and it's with Studio Ghibli, who is known for having some of the best animation out there. They did Howl's Flying Castle, you know, anime like that, high quality, incredible stories, incredible composition. And they worked on this project, or will be, Yoda Short Zen update. I haven't even watched this. I don't know whether it's come out. It says that they confirmed as a short Zen Grogu and Dust Bunnies. I think it did come out. There's a picture you can see Grogu is kind of drawn a little bit differently. He looks a little different. And the idea is that Studio Ghibli is not going to give us something that is bad. I don't know about you, Russ. I've never seen a bad Studio Ghibli animation. I don't know how many of you out there have watched anything from Studio Ghibli. But I have watched a lot from Studio Ghibli through the years. And for those of you who are in the chat, have you ever watched Studio Ghibli? And you know, what do you think about this collaboration? Russ, for years I've been saying that they needed to do a Grogu or a Baby Yoda little series, an animated series. And, you know, I've kind of felt like we need that. We needed to kind of find out a little bit more about this character that is going to be alive for 900 years, for heaven's sake.
Mm.
What do you think about it? I mean, after all, he is kind of a character. I think that would appeal to children, but Studio Ghibli makes animation that appeals to adults as well. They're not necessarily 100% intended for children. What do you make of this, Russ? Could Disney actually agree to Studio Ghibli and a very specific studio that's known for a very specific design, very specific storytelling? They even, and a lot of times, will put very specific cultural references, and they are a Japanese studio, very specific cultural references to Japan in there. What do you think about this collaboration between Disney and Studio Ghibli?
Interesting. I think when Disney, like any corporation, seems to be very, very risk averse and ends up making poor decisions on their risk aversion. But lately, when they have taken a risk, it seems to have paid off spectacularly well. You know, I would say, looking at Andor and how that is a complete departure from everything else that Disney have done, Rogue One withstanding. You know, it's not shot in Los Angeles. It's not really done under the auspices of Disney corporate. It looks like a very much a filmmaker driven project, and it's outside of that particular bubble, and it's brilliant, and it's receiving all sorts of rave critical reviews. Okay, it's not picking up much traction in terms of viewership, but it's an excellent show. And I wonder if this step to sort of do something a little bit avant-garde with the character, a little bit out there that you wouldn't expect, might be a little bit of a tester. I hope it's good. It's I'm not particularly interested in Grogu myself. Don't shoot me, and I probably won't be watching it. But you know, if it serves Grogu fans and is a decent story, why not? Yeah, retro no girls. You're thinking there. Namor and Shuri, they should get together. It's like a chant.
Well, it is. I mean, because, you know, I'm just gonna say that if a man, like I kind of might have said this to you already, Russ, but you know, you meet a guy and he gives you a dress and says, I want you to wear this dress tonight. And you go, oh, you want me to wear this? Okay, I'll wear the dress. And you put the dress on, and then at dinner he gives you a bracelet. I have a gift for you as a bracelet. Oh, you're giving me jewelry. Oh wow, you're giving me a piece of jewelry to wear. That's so nice of you. Thank you. The next step, Russ. The next step after this intimate encounter, after all of these wonderful gifts, Russ, can be more intimacy. Let's just put it that way. Can be more intimacy. And I think that if if we're supposed to believe that this is an actual encounter, that this is, you know, that this encounter between these two characters actually happened, we have to get the, what is it called? Is it called the what do you call it at the end of the story? Is it the payoff? We
Yeah,
have to get
the
that.
denouement.
That's right. We have to get that because honestly, okay. Thank you, Retro Nerd Girl. Their coupling could have saved many lives, including one very important character in the film. But also, it could have made another element, something else that happens later on, even more significant. If
Sure, but
things
they
did
couldn't have
not
gone
work.
there. They couldn't have gone there on like I know what happens at the beginning, and I know what happens at the end, and the tribute to Chadwick and all of that stuff. They just couldn't have his girlfriend going off with some other dude. They just couldn't do it.
Well, that's not his girl. It wasn't his girlfriend. This is his
Oh,
sister, Shuri.
his sister, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
well then why not?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I agree. I agree. Then why not? I thought it was his girlfriend you were talking about. No, in that case, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow because I don't want to get too deep into it as to why,
Mm.
what is it about her that's not, why that wasn't done. But so Tom Jr. Jackson is talking about this cartoon, and says that it is out and it's 4 minutes long and hand drawn and it's cute. And Studio Ghibli is very careful, very specific. Every line is very specifically done a specific way. What I am going to say, Russ, is that their cartoons are what I would call adult cartoons. A
Mhm.
child can watch them, but the themes in them are quite adult and mature. Is anybody here seen any Studio Ghibli like House Moving Castle or Princess Mononoke? I think is another one.
Mhm.
Certainly very mature things. So they have the ability to do something a little different spin on a character. And you're right. This is a kid's character. He's cute, but he's going to grow up, and Yoda was not a child. Yoda was a grandmaster, mature character. I don't know what they have planned for Grogu, but I think eventually he's going to grow up and we might see some other mature tales from Grogu. And I think this might be the way to go because I didn't necessarily want to see too much of a caricature of this character, if you will. He has a very specific look. I think that the look they gave him here is good enough. I don't think we needed to go any further with it or to enhance anything that might have seemed odd. This more minimalistic look of Grogu, I think, is great. I think that we get the point of who it is. It's no one else but Grogu. Um, so I think that it is very interesting, perhaps only interesting to me, Russ. But I admit that I was very happy to hear about this, and I think that it's going to be something that could only benefit the studio.
I hope so.
But despite that fact, Russ, and everybody, let me just see if I can do this again. Despite that fact, we still have articles like this one where, and I am going to play my promo in a second. Tom Jr. Jackson, let me see if I can find what I'm looking for. Despite this, we still have articles like this. It is unfortunate. It's so hard to click on this thing. Kind of like these bad news headlines about Disney plans layoffs, rigorous review of spending and hiring freeze, tough and uncomfortable decisions. Certainly something that Disney employees have been going through. This is like another round of this in less than a few years, Russ. It's really hard, the notion of this, having to do this. And it does feel very difficult to be put in this position when they're going ahead with new projects, like something like what we just
I
discussed.
think so, but I do wonder about I wonder about this because it's been made mention many, many, many times under different regimes at Disney uh, with their strategy of social messaging. Let's just put it that way. That they have employed a lot of activists at all levels of the company, and that is now starting to become a culture within the company. There was the whole hoo-ha about Dave Chappelle doing a show, and half the people walked out and refused to work and stuff like that. So if there is this proposed change of direction, I wonder if this is now to sort of look at what kind of work is actually being done by different teams and different departments, and what stuff are they producing, and what value are they bringing to the company. You can only have so many equity, diversity, inclusion members of staff doing so many things, and there seems to be like a proliferation of that sort of thing within Disney. So I wonder if this is looking at that side of their business and saying, well, where can we cut some chaff and where can we get some quality? I could be completely wrong, but I have heard many times that this sort of their recruitment strategy is crippling in a way their ability to change course, because decision makers at sort of middle management level are not steering the ship in that direction.
Yeah, you make a good point, Russ, and it's something that anybody who runs a business would be concerned about. 190,000 employees, which is, I think they're the largest employer in Florida.
Mhm.
And their stock has decreased, and foreign currency fluctuation, I'm not quite sure what that means, and bruising streaming competition applying pressure to its operations. There was a quarterly earnings report that came out recently, and further unnerving investors. Its beleaguered shares recovered earlier today, finally bounced off a multi-year low established on Wednesday. So certainly this is something that is unfortunate for the company. We don't like to see stuff like this. And as you said, Russ, they do have to make these decisions going
Well,
forward.
has David Zaslav like, has he become the sort of Wizard of Oz here? Has he sort of revealed what goes on behind the curtains when it comes to streaming? And we'll see. Actually, it'll take 3-4 years for us to see how successful Zaslav is. And the reason why I say this is because he's basically said, yeah, streaming's great and we'll put our stuff on streaming, but it shouldn't be the business model. We shouldn't be sinking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions into streaming in the hope that it'll get us subs, which in Zaslav's mind seems to be the equivalent of like Facebook likes. Like, he doesn't consider this to be important. And he's talking about launching a sort of HBO non-max where you just have commercials in it. And I think I said last week that Paramount sort of did this. They've got sort of Paramount Plus, which has got Star Trek Discovery, and Paramount Not Plus, which has syndicated shows on it with commercials, and both of them made the same amount of money. So one's free, one's subbed, and they're both making $1 billion each a year. But you're spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on Paramount Plus to make Star Trek Discovery and all the other stuff. So maybe that's the way of the future.
Maybe, and I did just want to say this before we go into our other segment now. People do have a lot to say about Studio Ghibli, and thank you guys for making these comments. Gary Bando Sandwich says, so are all of the films by Studio Ghibli. And Murray Lackery says, I've seen them all. They're great movies. And Anoma Splendido Novio says, I love you. We love you too. Thank you for being here. Murray goes on to say, Princess Mononoke and Castle in the Sky are my favorites. Yes, they are very, very unique. Jerry Minoza says he's watched every Studio Ghibli that has been released, and that they are the creme de la creme of animation. And even Retro Nerd Girl commented, if I can find her thing, Disney needs this tight kind of injection of creativity. Certainly,
Absolutely.
they do need that. They need to innovate because I think that audiences aren't always necessarily going to be satisfied with what we've been seeing. We certainly do need to see something different. So, guys, it's time to see the promo for the show, and we will be back in 30 seconds. Oh, already? Okay.
I was just getting a can of Coke.
Yeah, I was just warming up that every time I see that promo, it makes me want to do the movements and dance and, kind of move around, and it gets me really excited. Thank you, CJ, for such an incredible intro, outro. I use it everywhere, CJ. I love it. You are the best. I so appreciate it, CJ, for making that for me. Now, the other thing I was going to say is there are a lot of other things going on, but we cannot leave the show without talking about Andor, Russ.
We cannot.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much, Tom. That is so sweet. It's not me dancing, but
Mhm.
thank you, Tom. Anyway, you are so kind to say that. And thank you, Darth Plato, for the kind words. We're going to have to talk about Andor because certainly Andor has been something that I don't know about you, Russ, but it certainly has been something that I feel has kind of changed the tone in these programs that Disney has been creating. We haven't really gotten anything like this before, and it feels somewhat more complete, even if it is a slower paced type of series. Certainly, it's giving us a lot of what we would expect in a regular television show anyway, but just haven't gotten from Disney before. And there are a few series coming up, including The Mandalorian season 3 and the Ahsoka series. Russ, is this a move in the right direction, do you think?
Well,
For
Andor,
yes.
yeah, it's the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back. I've said that before. It's absolutely, yeah, Murray, 100%. It it continues to amaze. Retro No Girl says underneath, this episode 10 was 10 out of 10. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Um, this show has me absolutely gripped. I can't wait for each next episode to roll around. When they were doing their prison break, the tension in the build up to that was a masterclass in how to build tension. It was just brilliant. Everything was, and then when they were talking about Strandrilla marriages in the last episode, and how that my Mothma and her husband had married off at 16, and then then we're talking about other things, and then her mate from Strandrilla says, "Well, look, we can do business with this guy." She's like, "No, he's a dirty criminal. Um, I don't want to deal with him." But then she's kind of like forced to deal with him because she wants to get her money transferred, and of course his price is marrying into royalty, like he's trying to get his son. But yeah, it's just Machiavellian Byzantine stuff going on in Coruscant, which is cool. Um, what it calls it's epic. It's brilliant. I love it. Um, and what I really did like about this episode as well was I've been talking for a couple of weeks now about what is Luthen's stake in all of this, and he finally sort of reveals it, and it's just tragically real, isn't it? This is what I thought I got from his speech. When he says, the blokes, the rebel, the imperial traitor, um, wants out, and then sort of challenges Luthen and says, "Look, what have you ever sacrificed?" And Luthen, Skarsgård delivers this monologue of no. It was so epic watching it, but it seems to me like he was just a guy in a position of some wealth and some power who had some political opinion that differed from the empires, and his ego got him involved, and this can't stand, I won't have this, and it can't be, and his ego sort of drew him further and further into a cause that he is now locked into, and it's cost him his decency, his humanity, his relationships. That whole meeting was about how they're going to sacrifice 50 men, for the greater good.
Yeah, and I just wanted to show some of the comments from you all here in the chat. Um, Murray says that Andor was one of the best pieces of entertainment this year. Retro Nurgle says Andor episode 10 was amazing, 10 out of 10. Darth Plato says Andor is lucky he didn't get electrocuted messing with that wall panel. There are spoilers. I have the spoilers banner down there. Gary Bando Sandwich says Andor is so good. Tom Jr. Jackson says the two highlights of Andor this week was Andy Serkis and then Stellan Skarsgård and that speech of his.
Mhm.
Um, also,
Loved it.
Tom Jr. Jackson says it's the great escape in space.
Mhm.
Jerry Mendoza said there's been a rumor that George Lucas is involved in the story of Andor. Darth Plato says marriage politics. Of course, you're talking about the Mothmas. Stubble says that Andor has continued to surprise me in a good way. Luthen fights for a sunrise he will never see. Heartbreaking. Certainly. um, certainly different things that we have to see here. Darth Plato talks about that Andy Serkis may be questioned by the ISB at some point.
Yeah, how tragic was that? I can't swim.
Yeah, Tom Jr. Jackson says, I kind of want to see a spinoff of The Princess Bride where Diego Luna plays a younger version of Inigo Montoya. I will take as much of Diego Luna as I can get. Tom Jr. Jackson, I think he looks beautiful. He just looks so good in this series. For me, and you guys know I have the inside scoop on those Mon Mothma parties for those of you who are
Yeah,
subscribed.
that was really cool. I watched your video.
Thank you. And, I also have been to Luthans, and there's a lot more of my inside scoop. So for those of you who want to know more about Mon Mothma's parties, Luthans, and even this prison escape, check out my channel. I can give you the 411, what they're not telling you, from outside sources, guys, from the
Yeah, and if you want the lowdown on the bawdy houses of Lower Westeros, I'm your man.
Excellent. And so, honestly, I think it's very interesting. Here I am showing you. We don't know Stubble if he jumped, and that's a question that a lot of people have asking. But I think that he did end up jumping. In the same way that Andor did, someone pushed him off the ledge. You can't just stand there and block the force, the tide of these men who were swimming for their lives. Certainly was incredibly amazing to see them get to that point and escape and just run. And, that famous line, I would rather die trying to take them down than giving them what they want. And it goes from person to person to person. They're passing the torch, passing this idea. Yeah, this is a good question. Transport docks, yes. Oh, okay. Thank you, The Hidden, for letting us know. We're talking about Andor now.
That must have been in the chat. They must have been talking about something like that earlier on.
Yes. And certainly, yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, Tom Jr. Eventually, if he stands up there, these men are going to be like, screw that, get out of my way. I actually liked that Andor got kind of pushed into. He's on the top ledge and someone hits him. It's very typical, right? That's what would have happened. The creativity in this story is just so refreshing. And
I'm wondering if Kino didn't jump. To pick up on that, you see now he said, I can't swim. Now, given the way Andor's character is developing in this show, he would have said, don't worry, I can, I'll help you. But the writers and the director sort of took that option away, and Andor was knocked over, therefore not allowing him to help Kino. So I wonder if Kino does stay, and as Darth Plato says, perhaps he's going to be interrogated by the ISB.
Yeah, and this was, just to go back to Stubble. And Mario says Andor is great and was really great writing and acting. And also Darth Plato says I can't swim either. And we also have Darth Plato saying that yes, he will end up in the ISB. It's something to think about, something that we're all concerned about, and we're all concerned about this character because of Andy Serkis's fantastic performance as this person. He really is. If he wasn't in there, none of this would make any sense. You needed a heavy hitter, someone who could relate this particular situation. It says in the last second emotional gut point, he stops and tells him he can't swim, so he rallied his fellow prisoners to escape, knowing he wouldn't be able to join them. Serkis sells this moment of resignation magnificently. It's the kind of sacrifice that'll inspire Cassian to become the rebel hero we know from Rogue One. The writer says, damn, this show is so good. Then, you had mentioned, they call it a Game of Thrones offer, Russ. On Coruscant, Mon Mothma and her banker, Tay, played by Ben Miles, meet deeply sleazy financier Dave O'Scaldon, played by Richard Delane, on her Chandlerland Embassy apartment. And he lives up to the promise of his name. This scene is delightfully tense, and the trio seated far apart as Mon radiates disdain for her guest. I know it's tasteless and cliche, but one of my indulgences, Davros says, of great wealth is the freedom from other people's opinions. But in actuality, he's contradicting himself. This man is all about opinions because he wants his child to be exposed to the Mothmas. So opinion does matter to him. He doesn't have that freedom. I
And
think
he doesn't have legitimacy, and they've set that up. Everybody in Chandrilan society knows what this guy is, right? At the higher echelons of Chandrilan society knows what he is. He's a sort of a dodgy character who hasn't made his money. It's not old money, or it might be some old money, but he's a criminal, right? And this is his way of having legitimacy in the high society of Chandrila, right? That's what I think, anyway.
it's definitely it. He wants the best for his child. He wants his child to have the opportunity that he didn't have. He certainly is somebody who understands what it might take, and he's willing to pay. He would have probably paid $400 billion to get his son to be associated with the Mothmas. I mean, after all, I've been trying to get to these parties. So if I feel that way, certainly this man would have no problem for laundering this money. A drop of discomfort might be the price of doing business. He wants a return invitation so he can introduce his 14-year-old son to Mon's defiant 13-year-old daughter. Even though he denies it, he clearly wants to bind their families through a marriage pact and increase his family's political clout. It's more Westeros than a galaxy far, far away, and love it. Mon is understandably horrified and refuses, but clearly isn't done with this idea. She's got to do something about this rebellious, suspicious money in case the Imperial starts sniffing around. And it says the Imperial Mon's fellow rebel Luthen is summoned to a meeting. And we find out that Supervisor Lonnie Jung, who's this guy here in the picture, it's not a big picture, but I believe it's this guy,
Mm-hmm.
happens to be a partner with Luthen. He's another insider, and of course, this whole thing wouldn't work if they didn't have insiders. I'm guessing it started with an insider. People think that Luthen was a Jedi that fell. Hear the rumor about him being a Jedi that fell to the dark side, but now wants to take down the Empire. I think that he was probably one of these Imperial officers, or maybe an administrator that realized what was going on and felt that he couldn't do that work anymore and stepped away from being on the Empire. That's how I view Luthen. I think I don't think he was a Jedi. I think he was one of the bad guys. If he was going to be a Force user, I think he probably was a Sith or something like that. So that's how I view it. And I think, why not have a Force user or someone who was around them and could see what the dark side does and isn't happy with it and now wants to fight against the dark side, fight against the Emperor. What do you think, Russ, about Luthen? We learned quite a bit through this speech that he had in the episode to Lonnie Jung. It certainly was something where he talks about calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless place. I share my dreams with ghosts. What were your thoughts?
I don't think he's a Jedi, and I don't think I don't even think he was part of the bureaucracy at all. I think he's a very wealthy person who just doesn't like the new government and doesn't like the way that the new government is going, and decides that he wants to overthrow that government, and his ego has drawn him deeper and deeper and deeper into a place where he is now as locked in as Lonnie. Right? I think that this started off as a political ambition. Almost, imagine him as an activist. I guess that would be a great way. Like he's a political activist who's like staunchly anti-empire, realizes that the die is already cast and sees how it's going to go, and sees that the empire will eventually. That's why he's so keen to act now, because he realizes if they get a big hold on things, they'll never be able to defeat them. But he's gone in too deep, and he finds himself, who was once an activist, not the word I was looking for, idealist was the word I was looking for. He's an idealist now who's gone into this, I want to overthrow the government, full of idealistic hope and fervor. I've got loads of money. I'll be able to do this. And now basically he's a criminal and a freedom fighter or / terrorist, and he's entirely dedicated to the cause. It's entirely taken over his life, and I don't think he ever intended that. And I think this is just taking him down this way. That's what I think.
Do you think do you think that Luthen would approve of Mon Mothma having an association going on the outside with Lavo now?
If
Do
it
you
furthers the cause of the rebellion, I think Luthen is down for anything. He's entirely ruthless and gives zero and has zero conscience and gives zero fucks. He's willing to sacrifice 50 men just to keep up a pretense.
Yeah, it's something to think about. Certainly, something that Luthen is one of those people who I think would also just die for the cause the same way.
I think he
Um,
will.
yeah, and I think you, along with many of the other people here today, have mentioned that. Well, first of all, I agree with you, Murray. We do need normal dudes. It would be great if he was just a normal guy and he wasn't a force user. I would kind of love that. Um, yeah, and he says, I hope he isn't a Jedi, just a man who wants to fight back. I 100% agree with you, Murray. So does Retro Nerd Girl.
Yeah,
I think,
I don't know if he was a guy that wanted to fight back. I have this from that speech of his, from what he said, what I extrapolated about that speech. I don't think he ever really thought he was going to be a rebel. I think he was an idealist that wanted to fight against this sort of politically and cause and agitate and cause trouble, and then now finds himself as this terrorist that think, you know, he's in so deep, he's now committed to the cause, and it's like that Thanos, you know, what did it cost you? Everything.
yeah, and so I think that it says it's jaw-droppingly cool. He sends Lonnie on his way with their arrangement intact. Hopefully, Lonnie won't decide the ISB guy is a liability. Oh, I'm sorry, Luthen won't decide the ISB guy is a liability and have him killed, because we already know Luthen will go ahead and do that. He says, I need all the heroes I can get. He says, before we jump back to Cassian and Malachi in Narkina 5. It is kind
That's an
of,
interesting, sorry, Aura, that's an interesting dynamic that Luthen and Lonnie have, right? So, you know, Luthen can't kill Lonnie. He can't have him killed. Lonnie's too valuable. Lonnie also can't give up Luthen, and because he knows if he starts giving up information on Luthen, Dedra's going to want to know how did he come by this information, and they are locked into this toxic relationship that probably started out, as I said, as idealistic and yeah, let's get rid of these people. They're cruel and they're evil, but now they're making decisions. It's delicious. It's awful, but it's delicious.
and I was telling you later that when we were talking about Dedra and Cyril, that somebody did do a mashup between the two of them, sort of like every
A
time you
romance, yeah.
a romantic mashup, which I thought was just absolutely wonderful. Thank you, whoever did it. I can't find it just now, but it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It looks like they're kind of like having this relationship, and they are actually having kind of a relationship, but it is very interesting. Um, Prince Marcellus Maximus, I'm not quite sure whether I understand this whole thing, says, what is it still here or is it gone?
No, what?
Oh, yes, it's here. If it is written, if I don't know who that the first word is, divided against this, his kingdom cannot stand. Oh, this is from the Bible. That said, how can Luthen be a Sith and be against the Empire and Palpatine? Siths are against freedom. Yeah, what I'm saying is that he was a discarded Sith, because the Sith are notorious for discarding people that they support once they've gotten what they want from them. Luthen is not a young man. He may have in early days worked with Palpatine or something like that. And then once he was double crossed by him, he fled. And now he's determined to do everything he can to sabotage Palpatine and anything in the Empire. So that's my theory in regards to who Luthen most likely is, and his kind of feeling against the Empire. But it's not really. We don't know. Russ, you made a lot of good points. Many of you have been making so many good points. And thank you for that point. Also, Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says, so many layers and the best cake. I don't even think I said hello to you, Princeton Marcellus Maximus. Now that sounds like a Prince Tron Marcellus Max. It kind of sounds like a number of different characters. Thank you for coming this morning. And Stubble says, I got the sense that the ISB head guy now has a new favorite. Obviously, it's Dedra, right? Dedra have been overruled by another suggestion a few times now. It makes you wonder if he's had the same pattern with the previous guy. Yeah, maybe you're right, Stubble. He did tell her to watch her back, but that might be all he's going to give her. Um, from that point. So Russ, um, we obviously know, at least I suspect, that Mon Mothma is going to have no choice but to accept this offer from Davos.
Mm-hmm.
And so her daughter is going to meet Davos' son, who is probably going to be really cute. He's going to be gorgeous. And she's going to be like, who's that guy? And since
Mm-hmm.
they like to hook up young, like as teenagers, something's going to happen. He's going to kind of become part of the Mothmas. But I don't believe that just because she's doing that, that's going to mean that there aren't going to be other consequences being involved with him. So I'm just kind of curious as to how that's going to play out, or whether he was a rebel all along. This gangster is a rebel all along because the Empire is hurting his business.
That's I'm more leaning towards that. I just think this show is so smart. They're going to introduce this bloke as an absolute sleazeball, and nobody likes him. It literally says here, he's deeply creepy and all of that stuff. And the way he is, I love the Chandrian fashion. Like, they've all got excellent hair. Like, I love the way his hair was similar to hers. Like, it's
Yes,
obviously a Chandrian thing, right? That's kind of
yes,
how you have your hair short. That's how you do it.
yes.
So much attention to detail. So I imagine that, yes, I think you're correct. I think his son's going to be insanely hot, and I think that the daughter and the son are going to hit it off, and you find out actually that this guy is the ally that she needed all along, the one that she's holding her nose that having to take up. I think he's probably going to turn out to be a bit of a legend. That would, if it was me, that's what I would do.
And
Yeah,
also, he's going to win her trust, I think. And
mm.
eventually he's going to realize what she's up to. I think that Tay, I hope I'm saying his name right, the banker, because he's a banker, he's going to have to kind of like dissolve any ties with Mon Mothma if he's going to continue to have that job.
Yeah,
And
maybe it will come out that Tay's been caught, and Tay doesn't the way that he's portrayed, he does not strike me as a strong man of action. The way he's written, like, he's willing to help and he's a nice man. But I think if the ISB turn up and said, "What are you doing with these accounts? What's happening with Mon Mothma's account? Why are you involved with it? What is Mon Mothma doing?" I think he'd fold and he'd crack. And I wonder if Davos isn't going to his name Davos. I mean, come on. It's like that. It's where the billionaires all go to plot our future in Switzerland every year. Um, yeah, I wonder if Davos won't be the one that has to deliver the bad news that Tay's turned against them, and Mon Mothma won't have it, and then you find out that Davos is right all along.
yeah, Darth Plato says the problem I hate that scene is that people in that line of the work, the ISB, always have an observer shadowing their movements. Certainly, there are a lot of spies. This is certainly a lot of spies around Darth Plato, and you're right. And it's going to be fun to see who it is.
Yeah, but maybe they do, Darth Plato. Maybe they do. Maybe this is the point, because, like, I don't think Luthen's gonna survive, and I don't think Luthen's gonna survive season one. If I'm honest, I think Luthen's gonna cark it before the end of it. And look, I'm making it no secret. I'm a Dedra fan. I think she's absolutely brilliant, and I'm kind of hoping she is keeping tabs on Lonnie, and I kind of hope that Lonnie leads them to Luthen, and I can see this show going there. I can see major characters getting killed off. They are kind of expendable, and I kind of like, that'd be ace, wouldn't it? If Luthen and Lonnie think they're playing Dedra, but Dedra's playing Lonnie. How cool would that be?
That would be something. And so there were still a lot of things. I know that they're talking about Easter eggs, and I thought this was already in this particular show where we saw Padme's headdress between Clea
Yes.
and Luthen. They're showing you that, and they're talking about the on-program comment, but everybody's been talking about that Padme Amidala Attack of the Clones headdress, which seems to be in this picture right between the two of them, and then maybe another headdress. And I really like that necklace. That it is a bit large, but is there. Russ, did you think about or anything else comes to mind about any of this other stuff in the episode that you enjoyed, that you want to mention?
No, it was just excellent episode. I was if I had a criticism, and it's not even a criticism, I was disappointed not to see Dedra and Cyril, who are my sort of two absolute favorites. I am so hoping that Cyril becomes a badass Imperial. I hope that I will be let down if Cyril becomes a rebel. Let me just put it that way. I'm kind of hoping that Cyril achieves his dream and gets that, ultimately gets that placement on the big new battle station, the Death Star, and he gets up there and he comes out of his funk, because I love the way that he's not, neither him nor Dedra, although she's got some more evil tendencies. Even the ISB, they're not portrayed as baddies. They are just a or military intelligence organization doing what they have been employed to do: hunt down rebels, keep peace and stability. That's what they're doing. And I love that they are being portrayed as that, and not sort of like moustache twirling villains. Even the doctor that tortures Bix, it's not a physical torture. It's just listening to things screaming for hours and hours and hours, and he's like, actually the straps are for you. Like, we're really sorry, but this is not going to be great. But let us know when you've had it. They're not portrayed as black and white evil, and I love that about this show.
Yeah, I agree. Jerry Menoza says, I can picture the Halcyon in this series. And Sybil McShay says, it's been interesting how we, in the beginning, had a lot of sympathy for Dedra as an underdog. And now it's been totally changed from sympathy to dislike in an interesting way. Oh, I kind of like her, though. Tom Jr. Jackson says, for movie reviews and more, check out and subscribe to my channel. Guys, do check out and subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. He does have some excellent movie reviews, especially his Wakanda review, which is up on his channel now. And also, definitely check out Tom Jr. Jackson's Instagram post with his Funko Pops. Darth Plato says, do Barry's diamond necklace. I don't know. Also, let's see. Mike Alito says that there's no way Cyril becomes a rebel. I agree with that.
I hope not.
Yeah. Hey, Bunyan Snipe is here. Hi, Bunyan. Wow, it's good to see you. I hope you are well. It's been a little while. I hope you and your family are well, Bunyan. So nice to see you here. Welcome to you, as always. Retro Nerd Girl says, I feel as if Cyril is going to burst. He's a tragedy. Yes, it does feel like there's this certain pressure or something building up in Cyril. And, he crossed the line when he followed Dedra to her job. And as I've told you, he's already been in her underwear drawer and sniffed her underwear. So he's crossed
He
the
has
line.
not. He has. Stop it. Stop it now. Cyril's just dedicated and is trying to do the right thing. And he is frustrated that bureaucracy is not allowing him to do the right thing. He's trying to bring a murderer to justice. That man there on the screen is a murderer.
Fair enough. I am just poking fun at Cyril for following her, to work, which,
No.
And guys, do check out Russ Whitfield's a website here. If you want to find out more about Russ's work, his books, the Gladiatrix series, do check it out here in the chat. It's also in the video description, everybody. Also, Bonzo Kilborn, hi, Bonzo Kilborn. I wasn't sure if we saw you earlier, but hello. And you're right, Bonzo Kilborn agrees with you. Cyril is the truest of true believers. And Mike Alito says, I think Artem is right, but Dedra loves it. She loves that this man is like almost fawning for her at her knees, dedicated to her, telling her.
That's what's so good about that. It's like Dedra's reaction to him. We just don't know what she's thinking. Is she entirely repulsed by this creepy guy? Or is she like, is this guy into me? What the hell's got you? It's almost like she's not used to that kind of attention. Like, she seems to be one of those people that's like so career focused and smashing the glass ceiling and taking on the patriarch and all those other things that she's doing. And her reaction to him, she's looking at him, and you can't tell if she's looking at him in shock, in horror. He's a piece of shit. And her reaction to him, she's a wonderful actress. I don't know if I've seen her in anything before, but yeah, she's those two are my favorites in this entire show, and I want only good things for them. And I know that makes me horrible because they're part of the Empire, but I hope that they end up not dying.
Yeah, I don't think it's horrible. I think it's great. I think that they're both very talented actors. She's wonderful. I think that she, wears the uniform well. Um,
Mm,
and I also think that she is an example of so many people who want to be important in the Empire. She doesn't just want to have sort of, a fly by night career. She wants to be someone that people go to and pretty much will say, you've got to contact her. She's in charge. She wants to be in charge. She wants to have that important position in the Empire. And I admire her. She's a woman who will get what she wants. I don't think she'll stop. But I also think that she will sell out people on the way there. I don't see her as being sort of altruistic for the cause. The cause for her is herself. At least that's how I view Dedra. Stubble says that if things come to a breaking point, that Cyril may become a rebel if his dreams of imperial utopia are shattered. I guess Dedra could break Cyril. What do you think, Russ?
I
Uh,
hope not. I really hope not. I don't think that this show has that sentiment. Right, I just don't think it would do it, and I would be really disappointed if Cyril goes, oh, this is also terrible. No, I'm against you. I just hope that he gets what he wants, and maybe when he does get what he wants, he realizes that it isn't what he really wants, and he does see the Empire for what it is in the end. But at this point, I'm just hoping that he becomes an Imperial, squad commander on the Death Star, and that she is using Lonnie to track down Axis, and Lonnie doesn't know it because Lonnie's been brilliantly set up. Like I think 3 or 4 times she said to him, "Good work, great work, well done," and he's such an inconsequential character. He's just like there, sitting in the background. And I think there was one. I was watching one stream. They were memeing on him, saying, "Oh yeah, that guy there, he's going to get a promotion. He's going to end up on the Death Star." Like the character was a meme. And now when you think back to every little interaction that you've had with that character, he's actually indispensable, not indispensable because nobody's indispensable, but he is a valued assistant and helper to Dedra. Inconsequentially, yeah, well done, mate. Yeah, good job. Yeah, you go and get the files. And now you find out what a key player he is in all of this in one scene.
right,
One scene.
right.
And the whole view of everything that has been done before with that character. Now you realize how important he is to not only Dedra, but now to Luthen as well. It's brilliantly done.
And Darth Plato says Cyril will probably act independently against Andor, but only get in the way and become a liability for Dedra. And perhaps my favorite comment of the day by Gary Bando Sandwich Worthington says that Dedra is on the cover of Empire magazine. You know it.
Ooh, yeah, mic drop.
Absolutely. Gary Bando Sandwich, you have hit the nail on the head there. Certainly, that is what Dedra is aspiring for. And of course, a private audience with the Emperor, which she may never get, but might come pretty close. Tom Jr. Jackson says to check out and follow his Instagram feed for those cool Funko pics. Guys, please do check them out. Tom Jr. Jackson is very creative in the way that he poses his Funko Pops. So please do like and subscribe his Instagram channel. Um, um, Bonzo Kilborn says, I think Dedra wants all the credit for herself. The reason she doesn't like Cyril is she doesn't want anyone else cutting into her glory. And yeah, I would agree with that one. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I think she does want all the glory for herself. I don't necessarily think that Cyril's promotion and future lies with Dedra, and I think a lot of the people, some of the people in the chat here have made the comment. Maybe they will end up crossing paths. Maybe she will eliminate him.
Yes, and Michael Lido makes a good point. When the ISB realizes that they had Andor and let him get away, that may draw Dedra and Cyril closer together. Ooh.
Or that. You see, we just don't know, do we? And that's the wonderful thing about this show. We're all sitting here and we're all predicting, and it's fun predicting what we think is going to happen. And is Luthen a Sith? Is he a Jedi? Is he an idealist? As I have it? Is he none of those things? Is he all of those? Who knows? It's brilliant. I love it.
Well, to answer your question, Bunyan Snipe, about does the general populace know that Palpatine is messed up rage monster, or do they think he looks as he did as senator? The general populace does not know that Palpatine is a crazy maniacal emperor. They don't know, so they think he's just still Senator Palpatine. And the theory that some people were proposing is that Luthen knows that Palpatine is this crazy deranged person, and that's also part of the reason why he feels he has to stop him, because he's seen the transformation through the years of Palpatine, maybe one of the few people who had picked up on what was really going on. So I don't think everybody else really knows what he looks like. He puts this thing to cover his face, and they don't understand why he's changed so dramatically if they have seen him. So that's my answer. What do you think, Russ?
Well,
Do
he
you
did do
think?
the big reveal, didn't he, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when he said, look what those bastards did to me. I'm all fucked up now, and that's because the Jedi did this and blah blah blah. So I think it's sort of known that he was attacked and nearly killed by the Jedi. But if you go forward, the Emperor is just the Emperor. I don't think anybody outside of his immediate circle would have any knowledge of him being a Sith Lord. It's only really Yoda, Vader, and Obi-Wan that know, and those other guys that are with him in the Imperial throne room. But not many people know that he's a Sith. I mean, the Jedi are all but extinct. It's probably something that people haven't thought about for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Exactly. I think that yeah, I totally forgot about the reveal too. So Bunyan. So but your question actually was um in regards to being a messed up rage monster. Um I don't think they realize that he's maniacal. I think the senators know. I think the only people who really know how crazy Palpatine is right now is the senators, because there's two things that are happening in the Galactic Senate. The first thing that's happening is that the senators are being pressured to do stuff they don't want to do, and we know that. We know that that's what's happening. They're being told that they have to, pull all the natural resources from their planets. They're being told that they have to stop, shipments of food going to certain places and send them to others, knowing it's going to cause people to starve. We've even seen a situation where in one of the, I guess it's Tales of the Jedi, the people on a planet killed their senator because he was kind of selling off pieces of the land, and the land would just be completely depleted, and they didn't want that to happen anymore. So we know that that's happening, maybe in more ways than one. The second thing we know that's happening is that no one's listening to philanthropic things, because the way that Mon Mothma has been treated in the Senate is that people just keep turning the light off, they're shutting the light off, and they don't want to be associated with anybody who's a goody goody. Even the discussion at Mon Mothma's party, which I happen to be privy to, said
Mhm.
that what exactly is this protection that he's providing, and who makes the decision about whether protection is good or not. Um, and so there is that, and so I'm sure there are a bunch of people saying that I have a relative who was taken away, and going to these senators, perhaps trying to figure out how they're going to get their relatives back, only to find out that the senators aren't necessarily interested in bringing back people that are kind of lost to the system. At least those are some things that I think that's going on. What do you think, Russ, in regards to that?
I think the senators are now more interested in covering their own backs, which is why when she was making that speech against imperial policy, everybody's just started turning their lights off because they don't want to be associated, as you say, with somebody that's going against the tide. Like, why would you uh, fight against the empire when it's becoming increasingly more powerful? And they're probably all lining their own pockets anyway. There's a lot of imperial Rome stuff going on with this story. It's very similar to that, and the Senate sort of having less and less power, and the emperor's going to dissolve it, and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, uh,
And
I think they're just watching out for themselves.
And Darth Plato says that the fact that the ISB doesn't know that Andor is in custody proves that agencies' branches don't share information that could usher in a revamp of Imperial intelligence. And we could certainly say that that's true.
He's under a false name, though, isn't he? He's under the name of Kel or Kem or something like that. He gave a false name when he arrived on um, Miami Planet. So it would probably take, we forget the galaxy's a big place. So it would take a long time for them to. Why would they even question that? If he's got good, decent papers, decent fake ID, they wouldn't question it, I imagine. Although maybe for plot reasons they will find out, and well, let's hope so. Let's hope they well, they're not going to catch him, are they? But let's hope they catch Luthen and Dedra has a happy ending.
Yeah, in more ways than one. Bunyan Snipe says, "Do we get a big cameo at the end of the season, like live action Thrawn?" I have no idea. I don't know whether we need to see a live action, but honestly, I don't know.
Maybe
I
the
don't.
Emperor. Maybe the Emperor will pitch in at the end. You know, when Dedra's story is coming to its conclusion, or maybe we'll get Vader. But probably
Yeah,
because they have brought Christensen back, haven't they? So perhaps it will be a Vader appearance.
it would seem to make sense that since Palpatine was mentioned, he was mentioned at a party at Mon Mothma's about Palpatine. His name popped up. I wouldn't be surprised if Palpatine paid Mon Mothma a visit.
Yeah, and
Now,
also the head of the ISB also said, "I've just come back from a meeting with the Emperor." You know, as if that's well, it literally is something he has to do once a week, so it's no big deal to that guy. Yeah, I've just come back from a meeting with the Emperor, and he wants this, that, and the other, and like, oh, okay, well, we'll do that then.
Gary Vando Sandwich says Dedra and Cyril's mom meet in the next episode would be fun.
Yeah,
I think she would be very impressed if Cyril managed to snag Dedra, so to speak. That would be unbelievable. And also, oh, he's asking, how could I root for Dedra? How? I like
I think
Dylan.
she's awesome. I think she is awesome. I just love her character. I love that she's not portrayed as some evil psychopath. That she is just a woman doing her job in the corridors of power in the Empire. She's probably, you know, she is a woman in a man's world, all of that stuff. She's smashing the glass ceilings and all of that, but it's not done in a sort of rah rah rah, everyone's terrible kind of way. She's just doing her thing, and I just love the characterization that the Empire are not buffoons. They're not all evil people who get out of bed every day just wanting to hate everybody. They're just people doing their job for a regime that some see as benevolent, powerful, brilliant, and thank God you've got rid of all those criminals and it's so much law and order and we love it. And other people like Luthen think it's a tyrannical thing that needs to be overthrown. And I just love the portrayal of her character.
Absolutely. And to this last comment from Mikey Lito, where Mikey Lito says they don't have fingerprints. And the only reason why they didn't identify Andor in the prison is because they didn't want to identify anybody in the prison because they don't want a record of anyone ever having been in that prison. So it's good that they could have given, everybody could have said that their names were John Doe and they would have written it down and not said anything because the Empire doesn't want anyone to know that they are throwing people in prison for that
Yeah.
long. So they're trying to
Surnames aren't a
hide
big
it.
thing, are they? Because the Empire had to give Han Solo his own surname. They've established that, like the Empire really don't give a shit who you are.
Yes, but in
You're
this
just
particular case, they're hiding the prison, so
that's yeah.
they don't want those names recorded anywhere. So the names are completely irrelevant. The person's identity is irrelevant. They just need a hot body there to do the job, and they don't care what the person's identity is, and they don't want a record of anybody even being there. So that's why they didn't properly identify anybody because it's what they're doing is essentially an unfair sentencing and imprisonment,
But
slave
it's
labor.
illegal, isn't it? It's entirely illegal what they're doing.
Yes, no one agreed to that. It's a slave labor camp, and they don't want to have a record of it. What they plan on doing essentially is just keeping their people there indefinitely in slave labor till they drop. And as far as they're concerned, if you can't say exactly who was there, that's even better for them. So that's why it's so easy for someone to give that false name. They don't want a record of everyone even being there. Very, very clever and deceptive. Yes, I do think Dedra and Cyril will meet again for sure in the series. And guys, catch me tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the Ladies of the PGS on the Post Geek Singularity. Russ, is there any last thoughts that you have regarding Andor?
No, I think I've said all I need to say on that. I think Bonzo Killborn says, "Did you miss the torture part with Dedra?" No, I didn't miss the torture part with Dedra, but that character Bix was warned. Just give us the information. And I've not said that Dedra's whiter than white. She is leaning more towards the dark side, but she's just doing her job. There were lives at stake. People we're gonna die. She needs this information. That's how she's looking at it. She's not looking at herself as an evil torturer. She took no pleasure in that. She said to Biggs several times, and it's usually just not worth the pain. You might as well tell us. You're gonna tell us. It's not worth going through this, but she insisted, and there we are. I'm not justifying it, but I think it's a brilliant portrayal of the Empire, making them less of a joke than they have been in essentially the sort of swashbuckling kids drama that Star Wars is and should be. You know, for its most part. Now you're seeing what they're really like, and I find that I just think it's brilliant, man. I just love that show.
Absolutely. Darth Plato says there is a court case, there's a record. And so it's, it's not a true court since the sentence was egregious and they didn't confirm his identity.
It depends on how good his fake ID was. So if his fake ID was all open and above board, and then his prints are probably read out, he puts his prints on there, it's probably all been hacked. You know, who knows what's going on? But I think it's pretty much nailed on that his fake ID is as good as it can get, because he had all the money in the world to purchase his fake ID. Don't forget, he's a very rich man now after stealing the money from the Empire. So we can just assume that he's there under his assumed identity, and why would we assume anything else? If you think of the countless hundreds of millions of prisoners that the Empire has, he's liable to slip through the cracks, and that's
Yes.
I'm going with that. I'm going with that.
And I don't think they have chain codes yet, which is the way that the Empire keeps track of everybody, isn't it? By these chain codes. Yeah, I don't think they have them yet. So that's the one of the main reasons, at least for me, why they can't find him without that. Stubble says, I wonder if Luthen will meet Andor again. Yeah, this is a good question. Oh, yes, Mikey Lito, 2 years. Oh my gosh, it feels like
no, it can't be that long. Don't tell me that.
And Mark Spector's avatar. Hi, Mark Spector's avatar. My last thoughts are, can we do the show? I'm sorry. Oh, I can't do that. Sorry, Mark, but certainly it's a nice thought. Who says, can the show? He has to wake up later. Thank you for stopping by, Mark. And Woodrow says, ignoring these things like fingerprints is part of the fun. Yes, the laziness, they say, of the Empire. Certainly something to think about.
It's the arrogance, isn't it? That they've mentioned that many times. We don't counter them. You know, we're just bodies. Like, they're literally plotting their prison break, shouting at each other across the thing, and nobody's listening. Nobody cares what they're doing. They're just irrelevant. So yeah, perhaps so, Woodrow.
And Murray Lockery mentions that the record on the plaque was all made up. Yeah, it's all fake. It's a dummy court. I can't remember if that's what they call it.
Kangaroo court, yeah.
Yes, and to convict them, it's all bogus. So it's a record that doesn't mean anything in that regard. So if you went to go look for someone, you wouldn't find anything. It's not going to. Darth Plato talks about records, prints with aliens. There probably are aliens in prison somewhere, and they have a special way to do that. Obviously, they're not in the same prison with the humans there because of the environmental conditions, I'm guessing. But I assure you, they have imprisoned millions of aliens. It certainly is something to think about. Rogue Thinker. Hi, Rogue Thinker.
Hey, Rogue.
Hey, I hope you are well, Rogue Thinker. Thanks for stopping by. And thank you for everybody who has stopped by today. Russ, where can people find you?
Well, as Tom's already posted up, I've got a 1,000-year-old website. It's out of date now at russellwhitfield.com. Or you can email me at contact@russellwhitfield.com. But more importantly, where can we find you, RM?
Well, you can always find me here on Positive Fandom and on Sunday Brunch at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we do all the Parley in the fandom. And of course, you all are welcome to come here if you are creators and plug your channels and anything that you have coming up, in the near future. You can always find me on the Post Geek Singularity on Monday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Ladies of the PGS. For the show, we are a different show. We're not exactly what you think. So do check out Ladies of the PGS 6 p.m. on the Post Geek Singularity channel, Robert Meyer Burnett's channel. You can also find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network, either on the show Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. I also stream with Lorena Creel on Thursdays on her channel for our show, Toxic Male Appreciation, which streams on her Twitch channel at 5 p.m. Eastern. And on Fridays in the afternoon, you can find me on Midnight's Edge in the morning at 12 o'clock with Tom and Andre on Midnight's Edge. And on the weekends, you can find me on Midnight Musings with Robert Meyer Burnett for our Midnight Musings show on the Post Geek Singularity. And thank you, everybody who has been here. Oh, Gary Bannister says he's going to go to a Comic-Con in Liverpool next week. I sure hope you make another YouTube video so I can see the minutes from that. I really enjoyed seeing that. Gary went to, I believe it was you, Gary. I'm pretty sure it was you. You went to another con. I don't remember the name of the con, but he made a short YouTube video and you could see what he was doing, which was great. And for everybody out there, no matter where you are in the galaxy, please do remember to always be kind, guys. Make sure you stay safe, and I will be speaking to you all later. Take care, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye-bye.